Good morning. These are great June days, aren't they? This overcast and cool, and it's some days where by Memorial Day we're roasting out at our Memorial Day service, and this is great. Whatever God gives us is good. We know He's faithful, but it's good that we can enjoy each day He gives us and thank Him for it. And I'm thankful for the cool. As long as we can get it, we get enough heat here. We'll be grumbling pretty quick about it. I'm going to be over in Isaiah chapter 32 in a minute, but of course we got all kinds of politics stuff going on around us. And for those of you who might not watch very often, I'm in my backyard at home and videoing this morning and taking just a couple of minutes here and enjoying all the good things God's done. Isn't He good? And I can look over, you can't see them, but my Rose is sharing these shrubs on the far, I guess it'd be the left-hand side of the screen, just starting to bloom out. Peaches and apricots and plums and nectarines and all kinds of good things growing over there, and some spinach and tomatoes and anyway, a lot of good stuff growing. God's pretty amazing, along with flowers. You know, He didn't have to give us flowers, and if He did give us flowers for whatever reason, He didn't have to put color in them and make them pretty, and He's awfully good to us. And I hope you've taken time to thank Him today for being so good, and taking some time to just express praise. He's worthy of our praise every day, every hour, and we get busy, we forget Him, and hope you've taken time. But thinking about our country, I wanted to mention just a couple of things. Tyranny and anarchy go together. If you can get the people stirred up so there is anarchy, lawlessness, then tyranny can come in, and a tyrannical, we've got to fix this is a big mess, this is such a big mess, we've got to fix it. And so a tyrant really needs to stir up the people, cause enough difficulty, cause food and gas and housing and just enough trouble politically and otherwise, that people will then get stirred up, and they'll respond, and often respond in a very wrong way. And then there is anarchists, lawless behavior, and then people say, the decent people would say, well, we've got to do something. And then some tyrant comes up and says, well, you give me a chance and I'll square all this up. And so this unrest, that someone sows these seeds of unrest, the people who sow that unrest, and I think it's satanic, but the earthly vessels that sow it, they are not doing it because they have an idea of how to bring peace. They're doing it because they know it's a stepping stone to tyranny and to demagogues, to people really, it's like liquor and drugs. You know, people, the devil will sow that seed. This is how you can get free from your parents' rules, get free from that church's rules, get free from the society's rule. Just relax. Why don't you just relax and enjoy a sip or two of this and a drink or two of this, and pretty soon they're shooting up this and that, and then it's not long you go from this world up to tyranny, and they're ruled by their passions, they're ruled by their drugs and liquor, and they're hopeless, and the various forms depending on how far people go, but the bait is always there. And so we get enough frustration, enough anger, enough, this isn't right, the elections aren't right, the laws they're passing. I mean, California passes so many stupid laws, and it ripples around the country. And laws about kids in school, and laws about books in libraries, and laws about what churches. You just wait. They're going to be censoring church speech before long. Excuse me, it'll come along. And what kind of a stove you can have, and all this control stuff, and they're going to outlaw this gun, that gun, whatever kind of gun, and they're going to outlaw certain cars, and they're going to outlaw certain. I mean, they've already taken all the buses in California, public school buses, and thrown them out billions of dollars, I'm sure. And then they replaced them with ones that were safer and more up to date and more environmentally safe. And you don't forget Romans 1. They worship and serve the creature more than the creator. This world is nice, but the one who's really good is the one who made it. And let's keep our focus on Him, not on the creature. We don't worship the painting. We don't worship the painter either, but it's not the painting that's so amazing. It's the one who painted it. And it's not the flowers and the rainbows and the storms and the glaciers. No, it's the one who made those things. He's the one who's worthy of our praise. But in any case, our government, they could throw in enough rules that good people just go crazy. And God is not the author of confusion. Satan is. And so there's a lot of frustration, a lot of all kinds of difficulties that go on. But the key is knowing how to react. And I know for most of us, we don't know how to react. I mean, when people say, well, just vote. Well, when the voting doesn't seem to be accurate, then what do you do? And so it brings all these questions. And then when people have insecurity or unsureness, then they don't know how to act. And then you start ruling and behaving on emotion. And that causes a lot of trouble. Well, look here, that has to do with this in Isaiah chapter 32, and down at verse 17. It says, the work of righteousness shall be peace, and the effect of righteousness, quietness and assurance forever. So the work of righteousness, the work that righteousness produces peace. And then the effect, the long-term effect of righteousness brings about quietness and assurance. And so those are great things: peace, quietness, and assurance. Peace inside, quietness outside, assurance, a confidence. I know what I believe. I know who I am. I know where I'm going. Well, the opposite is true of unrighteousness. The work of unrighteousness is not peace, but turmoil. Ezekiel, I believe it is, says the wicked are like the troubled sea. They're just constantly churning and churning. They don't have any peace. Well, the work of unrighteousness would be not quietness, but loud and stirred up, and the outside being in chaos and anarchy. And of course, that's what our culture is trying to produce. The demonic part of our culture, and then assurance. And isn't there a breeding ground right now of you don't know? You don't know what gender you are. You don't know if you should stay married. You don't know if you should get married. You don't know if you should have children. You don't know if you shouldn't have children. If you have children, how do you raise them? All this insurance. What kind of a government? Should we redo the Constitution? Should we trust it? All this insecurity. No one is sure. No one has assurance. And see, when our country began, there has always been sin, but it was called sin. And whether it be drugs or alcohol or immorality, it was called wrong. But this culture that has begun to question whether it's really wrong, you're not really an addict. You have that's not drug addiction, it's chemical abuse. You're chemically dependent. You're a junkie. The world used to, this is right and this is wrong. They drew the lines apart, but now they've gushed these lines together. And so this thing, in verse 17, the work of righteousness shall be peace. And I think about my home growing up. We were not a church-going home, but America in those days was a different America. And you got along. I know there were homes where there was drugs or liquor. I'm sure there were. I don't know of any, but where there was anger and abuse and violence and all that. But the world I was in, we were a middle class. I'm going to say middle class, maybe not middle, maybe a little below middle. I don't know. We always had food and clothing and a roof over our head. My parents both worked. We had vacations. We didn't have expensive vacations. We didn't go on cruises or airplanes. We'd go camping at the beach or camping in the mountains, and we were just common, simple people. But the thing that I knew this, you didn't lie. You're not going to lie in our family. Boy, you lie, you are really, really in big trouble. And you did right. You didn't steal. You honored your mother and father. You obeyed your parents. You obeyed the teacher. And simple obedience and simple honesty and simple integrity. And you had a job to do. You did the job. And all these things. This world that I grew up in, whether it was Bible reading or not, it was a world. In our schools, they still use paddles. Principals paddled kids back in the 60s. And there was a world where people did right. You were compelled to do right. And the work of righteousness in verse 17 of Isaiah chapter 32 is peace. And so that's something inside. And there's a security that comes inside. Even a little child, even a baby in a home with rules, and when you eat, and when you sleep, and when you get up, and how you handle yourselves. When you raise a child in a home where right and wrong is very clear, I mean from infancy, what happens is the child grows up knowing the boundaries. They know right and wrong. They know what kind of behavior is acceptable and what behavior is unacceptable. And see this thing of righteousness. You know, you just don't scream. I told our kids, you can scream when you're outside playing games, but if you're inside, you don't scream unless you're dying or the house is on fire. And then we'd laugh about it, but that was the rule. You don't scream in our house. You don't yell at each other. You don't yell at me across the house. You come to me and you speak to me. And we had rules, we had boundaries, and I didn't yell at my kids. If I wanted the kids, I didn't holler from upstairs. We didn't have an upstairs. now that all the kids are married and gone, we have this big old house. Go figure. And we weren't looking for it with my knees. I sure wasn't looking for a 2-story house, but we had rules of behavior, civil society, civil behavior, treating people in a civil manner. You see, righteousness, having boundaries of right and wrong, what it does, it creates peace. And then the effect, what is the follow-up? What is the thing that follows righteousness? The effect of righteousness is quietness. Peace inside, quietness outside, and assurance, that confidence. I never doubted who I was. I never doubted my gender. I never doubted that I liked girls. I had a girl in the kindergarten, a little red-haired girl named Tammy I liked. I've always thought girls were pretty, and I don't get that. I think there's something very warped that messes with that. But assurance, I was assured of my parents, even though my parents split up. I knew they loved me, and I knew I'd be taken care of. I was secure. I had assurance. Our home, even through a divorce, I didn't hear my parents fighting and being ugly. And when my mom remarried, there was civility. That my natural father was not friends. He didn't come over and have Thanksgiving dinner with my mom and stepdad. We had a family, and my dad was the one who left. And as often as I wanted, I'd go see him. But we'd see each other some off and on. But there was civil. You see, there was security at his home. I knew I was secure. I knew he cared for us. I didn't get up in the morning wondering if I was going to eat, or wonder if I was going to get beaten, or wondering if I was going to be abandoned. And these kids that we work with, whose parents are in jail and drug addictions and prisons, and kids that ride our buses, and families we reach. We had visitors recently in church that we met in the jail ministry, and that, see, unrighteousness creates not assurance but insecurity. Kids are insecure, spouse is insecure, job situations, everything's insecure. And it's the byproduct of unrighteousness. Now, let me wrap this up real quick. So if righteousness produces peace and quietness and assurance, then let's start doing the right thing. And if we know it's right, shut our emotions down. I'll talk about that another time. I've got some scribbles on that. It might be in church, but who's ruling you? And so I don't want my emotions to rule. I don't want the TV to rule. We've got to get our TVs and our tablets, our computers and our phones righteous. And especially when you have children at home, our children should not have access to the internet. They just should not, unless you are sitting right next to them, unless you can see exactly what they're doing. And these kids who play video games, look at the physique of the females in these video games. Look at the physique of the males. And then who are they playing against? People around the world. Headphones. There's some guy, I don't even know who this guy is. He's in England or South America. Who knows the language, and who knows the attitudes, and who knows what. See, all these people are influencing our kids, and we're letting them do it, calling it a game. A game is Monopoly with 2 or 3 friends in the living room where mom knows what's going on and she hears the vocabulary. That's a game. Putting your kid on an electronic device that reaches the whole globe with headphones on, so you have no idea who they're talking to or what they're hearing or the music or the whole, that's crazy. We've got to get our kids off phones and tablets and social media. And I would say to you adults, social media is a cesspool. It is, unless it's just you and your kids and your grandkids or your parents or grandparents, whatever. I mean, you may be able to keep yours censored, but not many people do, because too many things climb in there. And whatever social media you might use, there's junk that gets thrown in there. Social media is a sewer. I heard people, somebody on the radio the other day, these are secular, they're not Baptist preachers, these are unsaved people, secular, I'm assuming unsaved, nothing Christian that I know about them, and they said that social media is a sewer that is nothing but pumping trash into the heads of American people. And so it's unrighteous. It's unrighteous. Go look at Philippians 4:8. I won't take time to go there. There's 8 things of what we ought to be thinking about. Fit that in to the social media. Fit that into the attacks and the slanders and the gossip and the criticism and the bitterness between political parties, and on it goes. But you see, righteousness brings peace inside, quietness outside, or you could reverse it if you want. Quietness inside, peace, peace outside. However, I think those could be interchangeable, but I think it's hitting both. And then assurance, that security, that everything's okay. I've spent countless nights, many, many nights, way into the late hours of the night, out away from the house in prayer, driving and praying. My wife doesn't worry about what I'm doing. Where I'm, righteousness brings assurance, and I'm not. She's not home right now. I'm not worried about what my wife's doing. There's assurance. And you say, well, you're in your 60s, your grandparents. I didn't feel that. I didn't feel worried when I was in my 20s, because righteousness produces peace and quietness and assurance. We need to get our TVs and our tablets and our social media and our phones and our friends, and lastly, our schools. Our schools, we need to get them producers of righteousness, to put millions of children, millions and millions of children in schools that are filled with unrighteousness, with immorality, with vulgarity, where every solid, secure, foundational principle of life is being challenged, whether it be the flag, the founding fathers, the anthem, our language, whether it be our morals or our Constitution or the Bill of Rights. All of that is being constantly challenged, and of course the anti-God, anti-religion aspect of it. Our schools are destroying our kids, and you ought to pray. I encourage you, if you go by a school, pray. Ask God to bless those kids and pull some of those kids out of there and get them secure, get them in a good church. You ought to pray for your church school, if your church has a school, and pray for the kids that are in it, and pray that we'd get some of these we have good kids riding our buses. I just, in the last week or so, a teenage girl been riding one of our buses for a couple of years. She came up to me in tears after church, just weeping, and she said, I think I'm going to be able to go to the Christian school. And I thought, well, that is so great. She was just so excited that she was going to be out of the smut and out of the unrighteousness and into a good place. And our school's got people in it, so there's sinners in it, but oh, it's light years ahead of the garbage she's been in. And she was just crying, and I thought, I could have raised the money to get you into our school, but I was thinking it was parents' concern, and I'm going to encourage these kids to honor their mother and father, and she's got a good home, but she's ridden our buses for a long time, but all the schools of America are pumping unrighteousness. A me first. I saw a T-shirt the other day. Let's just take care of me. Well, you know what? That's as far from the Bible as you can get. If any man will follow me, let him deny himself. That's what Jesus said. First thing, deny yourself. You're going to be a good athlete, you deny yourself. You're going to be a good soldier, you deny yourself. You're going to be a successful businessman, you're going to have to deny yourself. In fact, all great successes are going to cost your body, going to cost your recreation time, going to cost you family time, because greatness is not done as you cater to yourself. And there's so many, our whole culture is wrong. I want to challenge you. Righteousness, that is the thing that will make our world a world of peace, a world of quietness, and a world of assurance. And we need it. Well, and that's why in our churches, we need preachers to preach righteousness. We need preachers to put their foot down on what's right and what's wrong. And our churches are compromising, just trying to get people into church. And I know people, they'll fuss, oh, what's wrong with drinking a little liquor? What's wrong with them rock music? What's wrong? Go ahead, do whatever you want. You want to be that way, do it. But I'm going to preach righteousness. And I'm not going to argue to justify something that has caused more child abuse and spousal abuse and caused more car accidents than anything else in America, and that's liquor. And I'm not going to sit here and have a supposed intellectual discussion while you try to tell me booze is not forbidden. Just don't even go there. That is the vilest, most corrupt, perverse thing. That's listening to these foul people going to kindergartners and pretending they're what they're not. What shamefulness. Now, look, there it is. The work of righteousness shall be peace, and the effect of righteousness, quietness and assurance forever. And God gives us the recipes, and it's all right there. Have a great day. Thanks for joining us.